All right, here we go. Get the shop open up, get this day fired up, get these cars fixed up, and that's what's up. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm glad you're here. If you're new and you're wondering what's going on, I'm Jimmy. We're making it work. Master mechanic, 25 years or so. Been a mechanic for 41, going on 42 years. In other words, I'm really old, but I got a lot of experience. Doesn't mean I'm smart, just means I've been around the block a few times, right? I got the street cred. I'm gonna finish opening up this shop. We'll get started. We got a couple cars from yesterday, a couple cars sitting out in the parking lot ready to go. Little Buick wasn't picked up yet. It's still sitting here on the lift. I'm not sure why. I guess some guys like to test the park pins. You guys do that when you park a car? Go halfway up the lift ramps and just leave it that way overnight or during the day or whatever. I see it a lot. Guys put them halfway up the ramp and put it in park. So that little park pin is holding that vehicle's weight on that ramp the whole time. I don't know why it bothers me. I wouldn't do it, but it doesn't hurt anything so far. And that's what matters the most, right? All right, let's stop blabbering. Let's see if we can learn a thing or two, and definitely we'll have some fun. Stay tuned. All right, first car today, classic 2005 Kia Sedona. I know the hood shocks don't work. I came out here and tried to crank it, and it just goes click. And they said the AAA driver tried to jump start it, and the starter was smoking. It's got a pretty good click to it. 176,529 miles. A love rating of 4. Let's get under the hood. I got my trusty hood prop with me, and get a voltmeter, see what the battery voltage looks like, and see what kind of voltage gets to the starter. Maybe we'll try turning the engine, make sure it's not locked up. This is a regular customer of ours. The oil change isn't due for 1,800 more miles, so it's been taken care of. That doesn't mean the motor can't possibly be locked up. Just means it's less likely. 12.4. Sounded like a pretty healthy click on it. And definitely, the starter's definitely clicking, so I know I'm getting power down there. It's not easy to get to it to check it for voltage drop. So I'll probably figure out what size that crank bolt is down there and try to turn the crank. I'm guessing it has a bad starter. It's hard to tell. Usually if it's the engine locked up, that starter will give you a really good thud, and it just goes click. Let me grab a wrench of some kind. I think that's like a 22 or 24 millimeter from here. It's going to be fun to get to it, but we'll give it a shot. Good workout. We all pushed it in. I can't get to the crank pulley on the ground out there, so I got to lift it up. It looks like that tire needs some air too, so we'll check the tires real quick. As long as it doesn't need an engine. Oh yeah, that's nice. She turns. It might even start sometimes when you jar the drive. It'll start. We'll give that a quick try. And we'll clear all the debris. And air up the tires. And tell me it needs a starter. It could possibly have voltage drop, but it's also soaked in oil. And I tugged on the cables. Everything feels tight. And it's way too consistent. If you listen for that click, it's click, 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 the same exact click every time. Usually a voltage drop or a cable connection, it'll be a lot less consistent of a click. You'll hear a low click, a hard click, no click, that kind of thing, just based on my experience. But if I start getting in there to replace the starter and feel loose cables, then I'll correct myself at that time. GMC Terrain, I believe. You guys might remember this one. I looked at it a couple weeks ago. It had bad front tires. They said they still feel a problem. I'm like, well, it had bad tires. But I drove it, and at certain times it would just do a little and it goes away to no codes. It looked like a misfire looking at the misfire data screen. I had it up on graph, and cylinder 3 would flag a couple misfires, but not enough to set a code. So I moved the coil from 3 to 4. I looked at the plug, it looks fine. Move the coil, take it for another drive, see if the problem moves. Could even be a transmission shutter. Feels like it could be either, but it's so slight it doesn't set any codes. So if moving that coil changes that little misfire I'm seeing to cylinder 4, then I know we're heading in the right direction with the tune-up and a coil. If it doesn't move the problem, that would be really weird. I looked at transmission data, input shaft speed and output shaft speed, to see if the input shaft speed might drop when I feel the shutter, but or raise actually, because if the converter slips, the input shaft will raise and the output shaft will stay consistent. Didn't do any of that while it was happening. The only thing I could see was definitely some kind of a misfire. Literally like 2 or 3 misfires. So anyway, I'm gonna go drive real quick. I'll update you when we see what happens. I got someone helping me, so I don't have to drive and look at the scanner. And they don't want to be in the video so much. All right, we took the Buick for another drive after playing with the plugs and the coils a little bit, but I think what's actually happening is the converter's shuttering, and the misfires are coming from that because the drivetrain's being jolted. It's making a flag 1 or 2 little misfires. That's not really causing the problem. It's a result of the problem. So we're going to do I'm recommending a transmission service on it, what they call shutter fix or shutter repair or something like that. There's a fluid additive you can add to help reduce it. The Mustang, I think, has a bad head gasket. We'll probably look at that later. But we got approval on the starter, so I'm going to do that next. Oh, that thing pays 1 hour labor. You got to take the 10s off the shield and get the shield out of the way. And I suppose it'll be really easy after that, because an hour is not a lot of labor. That's for things that fall out, basically. So we'll see what happens with this. It is soaked in oil, but they don't want to fix the oil leak. Well, that is not designed to come out of there easy. Rubber booties. The plastic's missing off the exciter lead. I might have to get a pick to release it now, because usually the plastic pushes on the little leg to get it out of that little channel. There's a little pin, so I might have to get a pick to open that up. And it looks like a 13. The starter's been done already once. Probably because it keeps getting filled with oil, they go bad. The top bolt goes from this side and the bottom bolt from that side. Oh. I thought it went from the other side, but it's a stud with a nut on it from this side. That's strange. Yeah, it's easy. Phone's ringing. Ah, that makes more sense. There's a stud built into the starter. Cool. You don't have to transfer it over. It even comes with a stud in the new starter. The oldest starter said Napa on it, but this starter says AutoZone. So I don't know. I wish this connector had the plastic housing, but it'll still work. The boots on the connectors are all swollen from the oil. To get that nut. There's no nice factory nut. Someone tossed it when they put the other starter in. That makes me a little bit sad, but that's all right. That's all right. Gravity check! Impact sockets are designed for lock rings, and chrome sockets are designed for the little balls. That's why they fall off sometimes when you use them the wrong way. But I don't mind it. I'm fine with it. Some people didn't like seeing it in my video comparing the high speed and the high torque ratchets, but that's all right. They'll get over it. Oh my goodness gracious. That's the hardest part of the job, the shield. I didn't film it because I didn't think you guys really wanted to watch me use a pry bar to get it in and out. It's the only hard part. I think they want you to either take the dipstick out or take the exhaust manifold off. I can't tell which. And neither of them's happening for an hour labor. So now I got to try to bend it back in shape because I tweaked it putting it back in. It's all part of the process. I don't design them. I just fix them. This is tweaked up here too. You definitely don't want to touch the positive lug on the battery. But I don't want it to make noise on the exhaust either. But once I snug these nuts up, I'll be able to get my pry bar in there and tweak it a little bit back to shape. It does not fit between the dipstick, the exhaust, and the starter. It's not designed to. So, but we got it worked out. No big deal. It'll be back covered in oil in a few months, I'm guessing. We'll see. All right, settle down now. Tweak that back there. Make sure it's not doing anything weird. All right. Feeling pretty confident this is AutoZone quality, so I'm going to go ahead and put the splash shield back on, see if this thing cranks up. Got a cool little foot on it. Helps you hold it up there. I appreciate their effort. To get the shield off, probably be real good. Alright, here's my bolt holes. You messing with me? I know there's bolt holes, I saw them before. There you go. Yikes. Probably been on and off with this thing like 40 times. Yeah, we got it worked out. Under trays aren't that hard. Let's see if this thing fires up. I knew I had that new car smell for a reason. I always like to check the oil with any repair, especially when it's leaking oil. It's a quart low. 2,000 miles to go before the oil change is due. Dinosaur blood going in. Basically, don't even need to change the oil if you add a quart of oil every 1,000 miles or so. Well, that's not really true, but you know what I mean. See where I've got our oil level at. Just a little bit low now, but it's in the safe margin. I'll take it. I'm not going to add a quart and a half. It's due for an oil change another 1,800 miles anyway. That don't sound right. 2016 Dodge Journey. It's pretty clean inside. A 5, I'm going to say. Nothing great, but nothing terrible. About average. It got a wicked noise under the hood. We can hear that. And they said the rear air gets warm sometimes when they don't want it to. So we'll put the scanner on it for that one. See if there's a code or something we can do. Probably has a blend door problem, I would guess. Man, that thing's making a racket. These are bad for alternators and idler pulleys. Woo. Pull that belt out of the way. Spin that alternator. The clutch is definitely messed up. I see metal particles on this pulley, but it spins okay. The metal might be coming from the alternator. You can see where there's rust around the pulley here. We'll start it up, make sure it's quiet, spin some of these other pulleys, but I'm leaning heavily towards alternator and changing that pulley. The tensioner also, when I released tension on the belt, the tensioner stayed where I put it. So, might need 3 things. Primarily the alternator. The tensioner, I wouldn't want to put it back where it's supposed to be and hope it, every time the belt changes tension, it's supposed to move with it, right? So it's not doing that. Separate problem. Anyway, let's fire it up and see how quiet it is without the belt on it. Oh, quiet as a mouse. 93,000 miles. That's right about the life expectancy. I gotta check the rear AC for codes and we'll see what's going on with that. We'll put us a little estimate together for them at the front. Sorry about the key chime. I do have a B11D1-12 rear control head temperature request. Input circuit short to battery. Usually means it's missing a ground. Could also mean it's actually shorted the battery. I'll run a flowchart on that code and we'll see where that leads us. We'll go look at some data on that rear actuator as well. The flowchart on that trouble code for the HVAC is pretty simple. It says to, thank you. Oh, we got a different chime. It's pretty simple. It says to clear the codes, run it through the test, the blend door actuator test. If it resets the code, to disconnect the rear HVAC panel, clear the code and rerun the test again. And if it passes, then replace the rear HVAC panel. So obviously that's where they tend to have the most problems, I'm guessing. What I'm going to do for now is clear the code, run the test, and see if the code even comes back at all. If it doesn't, it's intermittent, which will make it more complicated. I got the scanner talking to it right now. We'll come back in a second when I'm ready to do that actuator test. I went and cleared the codes, retested, no codes. So now I got an actuator calibration test mode. It's running through all the actuators, see if, oh, actuator calibration active flag, false. Actuator calibration error occurred flag, false. Actuator calibration timed out flag, false. Actuator test complete. Okay. So, it looks like it's finished. It's not very clear the way that test works. We'll go in here and we'll see if we got any new codes. No codes. So it's an intermittent problem, which makes it a little more complicated and time consuming. So I'll let them know up front and we'll see how far they want to go with checking this HVAC problem. It looks like 9 out of 10 times it's that rear control panel, but I don't want to obviously just sell them a control panel and hope that fixes it. If I was 99% sure, it'd be a different story, but just going on a hunch, I'm going to try to get it to do it. If I can duplicate the problem, I can definitely narrow it down at least. We'll ask them up front and see where they want to go. We know it definitely needs the alternator, idler, and tensioner. And we'll see what happens with this one. All right, got approval on this alternator job, so I'm going to... The battery's remotely located, kind of a pain in the poop deck. So I'm going to disconnect my ground cable from here to make sure that alternator post goes dead. I'm attached to the alternator down there with the ground. Doesn't matter whether you go positive or negative, negative or positive. It's gonna show you 12.8 volts with the negative symbol when they're backwards. That's all. And then it makes the phone ring. I'll pull this off. Oh, did I really just drop that? Oh, it didn't go forward. It's right there. Okay. Pull this off. See if that made it go dead. I don't think it did, because this one's probably got to come off too. Showing 2 volts. All right. We'll pull that one off. Oh, you know what? I had this touching the negative here. That's probably why it read 2 volts. Now we know that's a ground. This post is a ground. Yeah, we'll be good. I can pull the alternator off there. I'll still be careful of that lead just in case. Now we will see here. Uh-oh. Doesn't want to let me get my tool out. No worries, we'll work it out. There it is. Got it. Now I'm going to lift it up and do the rest from the bottom, I think. I might lift this alternator out the top, actually. I think there's enough room to do that, too. Let's lift it up and see. I got to clean that lens. Oh, no. It's out of the way. That's what matters. And you definitely have to take the idler off, because you can't even see the lower bolt at this point. Well, 16 millimeter on that idler bolt, not 15. That's kind of strange. Oh, there's the bolt. That's a 14. It looks like on the bottom alternator bolt. You guys probably can't see it from there, can you? Here it is. Can you see it now? Just above the alternator. Compressor pulley right here. So, might be a 15. See what we got. We got a 15 socket right here. Let's test out here. You see? Oh, it's a 16. My goodness, just like the idler. All right, don't worry. I got one of those too. Stuck on 17 seconds. Been recording for 5 minutes. All right, we'll do a hard reset again. That's the 3rd time today. It records while I'm holding the button to force the reset. When I let go, it'll stop recording, I guess. That file is probably no good, and this one now it's recording without me telling it to. Alright, let's see if it works. We'll go ahead and try it. It's either going to be a really short video today, or it works. Oh, that's not going to happen. Let's go with the regular. Let's try the 3/8 impact. See if it's got more chutzpah than Didn't even go rat-to-tat-tat. Maybe the right angle loosened it up. And I gave up too soon. I don't know. Another hard reset. It's at 28 seconds. Still recording and frozen. Hard reset again. GoPro, you've been acting like a crazy sumbitch today. Let's see if this file works. Gotta get my tensioner since I got a new tensioner. It's a good indicator that we're doing it. Uh-oh. Oh, it fell right in my pocket. That works out. Ha! It's more ninja stuff like you see commonly on my channel. A lot of ninja stuff. Except for the part where these bolts got one more thread holding it and I can't get it to come off. We'll get it, don't worry. Ah, that's nice. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this tensioner in while I'm here. Then I'll lower it down and lift the alternator out from the top. Get both of these bolts started, just a turn or two by hand. Now, we're on the home stretch. Ah, that's the sound of victory. One more time, baby. Don't. Without catching my fingers. Oh, yeah. I'll pull this belt back on there. Where it belongs. Now, let's see how tricky I can be lifting that alternator out the top. Alright. That's what I'm saying. I hope all that footage is going to work because the GoPro's been acting funny all week. That's a record, like 4 glitches today. So I try not to mention it as much because it's not productive, but it does it a lot. But a hard reset usually fixes it. This one keeps saying repairing your file and it'll start recording on its own. Really odd. Anyway, maybe if I get this done and stop talking about it, I can buy another camera. Alright, I put the bolt in, gave it a couple taps with a hammer to make sure that the bushing was seated all the way back so it'll let it slip down better. Not easier, just better. It's different. Now I'll get the top bolt started. I can go ahead and tighten this top bolt because it's sitting in the channel for the lower bolt. There's not a hole for that bolt. It just sits in a channel and gets pinched. I have to go back over that. Just to hit it a little bit with the quarter drive. Make sure everything's going to be lined up. I don't have to revisit that bolt when I get it back up in the air. I mean, when I get it back down to put the belt on, I'll double check that bolt. Now, I got to get my new idler. Of course, a lot of the bolts are different sizes and stuff. That's alright. Tensioner bolt's different, idler bolt's different. Don't worry, I got plenty of sockets with me. Worst case scenario, my cart's 5 feet away. Ah, see? That's what I'm talking about. That's not going to fit. Let's see if that one does. I'll just try a bunch of them until I get the one that works. Oh, that doesn't work either. What the heck is that thing? 9/16? That's not right. Yeah, it must be. It comes with a pin and the tensioner to ease with the belt installation, I guess, but you can't get the belt on without pulling it further. So the pin doesn't hold it enough for you to put it on. It must just be for shipping or something like that. I don't know. Now I gotta get the pin out of there. It's like magic. It's like taking a quarter from behind your ear. I could be your grandpa, probably. Now I'm gonna take a risk and bolt this back on here. I've got most confidence in my Napa parts I installed. The tensioner and the alternator are made in Mexico, and the idler's made in China. So I'm thinking, if people are sneaking across the border to come here to get jobs, and we're making everything over there, something's wrong. Alright, enough of that. Let's get these clips back in, see if this thing's charging. And don't forget I gotta check that top bolt. Put them ground cables back on and we'll fire it up. The ground without the plastic casing around it goes on first. If you try to do this one first, there's a space behind here and the bolt will get it tight. Alright, I want to check this alternator bolt too. I got battery voltage. Fire this thing up, see if it's quiet and charging. That's how you get that new car smell right there. You gotta watch your connection now. No worries, just a connection. I just laid it on top of the positive. I'm gonna call this one done and see what's next. Might put a little splash of cool in the overflow. Looks like it could use a cup or two. Uh-oh. I knew there was something else. They said you put a belt on it too, right? No. But I'll go ahead and put it on. Luckily it's not hard on this. Do it all from the top. You saw how I loosened the tensioner. Except I'm not gonna have a pin in it this time helping. That's alright. Shouldn't be too bad. It'll only take a second for you guys. It'll seem just like a second. I told you it only take like half a second. Pretty easy. You guys might remember this car. Customer came back. He wants the AC diagnosed 100%. So they added a couple hours labor for figuring out the wiring and stuff. This is the one the AC compressor runs all the time. It's not even on. And he also wants us to make something that we can, I told him we could fabricate some metal to hold the battery up correctly. So he wants to do that. And a shift cable, he says it comes off intermittently, but it hasn't come off since I worked on it last time, which I put it on really good. I think he wasn't getting it on all the way, but it did come off in the first place. So we're going to do a shift cable too. So, let's get going on it. What do you say? What do you say? Alright, now we got a wiring diagram, or the best one they had from the 80s. And if I can separate these pages, it's hard. You need 0.5 for that. This is the full wiring diagram. And it shows the compressor has power constant from a fuse, and it's ground controlled by the electronic climate control module. I printed out a bigger version of it. You can see it has a diode. This diode is in the system, connected from positive to negative. It's basically a one-way valve. It's designed so when the compressor cycles off and on and on and off, that spike in current doesn't go back to the module. It's designed to protect the module. So in any event, I got to make sure the diode's in good shape. I got to make sure it's not pinched or grounded somewhere. I can't find information on where connector C103 might be. If I could get to that, I could disconnect it and see if it's grounded on this side or grounded on that side, but I can't even find out where it's at. There's no information because the car's so old. So my job is going to be to lift it up, take a look underneath, see if there's any custom wiring or any pinched wires that I can find. If not, then I got to go into the AC control panel and see if it's sending the ground out. You can also use the off and warmer buttons on the control panel to get AC codes. And there's supposedly a way to force the there's a way to force the compressor off, and if you can't force it off, then the control panel's bad. The flowchart says force compressor off. If it doesn't turn off, replace the control panel. But doesn't account for a wire being pinched. Obviously, if the control wire is grounded, the compressor will be on all the time, right? I'm going to check that first. That's the short version. This blue and brown wire goes up to the compressor. It's got a new compressor in the connector's in really good shape up there. I pulled it out of this harness. It all looks good, so I'm just putting it back together. I don't see anything down here unusual. So I think my next course of action is going to be to pull that control panel or try to get codes out of it. See if I can force the compressor off, that kind of thing. Well, it looks to me like I found it. The blue wire runs up this main harness into this dog leg, comes off the, I believe this is connector C103 that I couldn't find any information on. Right here where this blue wire is, and there's a scotch lock on it with a yellow wire, and the yellow wire runs up here to the fender to a permanent ground, forcing the compressor to run all the time. So my job's going to be now to disconnect that, see if the compressor still works, why they jumped it out, and all that kind of deal. So we found that ground. Now does that mean the control panel won't turn it on, so they turned it on permanently? Or does it mean the compressor didn't come on because of codes? That's the problem with getting into older cars. You're always second guessing everything and trying to fix what wasn't fixed or fix what was patched and unpatched stuff. And that's just preliminary, just to get back to where you're trying to figure out what's actually wrong. I mean, why did they do it, right? All right, let me disconnect it and we'll try to find out. All right, since he wants me to fabricate a better battery hold down, going to go ahead, because everything's kind of in here around the battery. I'm going to pull the battery out of it. I'm going to fabricate the battery tray first, because that's a safety thing more so than the AC to me. And that way I can get all this plastic stuff off, and I can get to the bolt that holds this temporary ground or permanent ground in. I'm not going to cut it up in case I got to put it back on, so he has some kind of AC, right? I mean, if this thing goes low on Freon, the compressor's going to run till it fries and locks up. So you'll lose a serpentine belt, the whole 9 yards. It'll be a big mess. But I'm not going to hack it up. I'm not going to repair that if I cut it up, right? Anyway, I'm getting the battery tray done first. 9/16, I should be able to get those cables out of there, get this battery out of my way, and see what kind of rust mess we're dealing with in there. Alright guys, thanks for watching today's video. That's where we're going to end it. I appreciate your company today. It's nice having you around. I hope I see you in the next video. Make sure you torque the like button on your way out. You're awesome.